Hey, everybody, this is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is the podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. I am so excited that you decided to join me today. And a happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. I got the opportunity, and I'm so grateful for this, to talk to the founder and CEO at the Business Growers. Laura Johns joined me, and Laura went into so many things about leaders, and she has this deep passion for leaders that are overwhelmed today, and she gives great advice on how you can get past that and get back to being you. And wait till you hear her talk about know, grow, and scale, talk about personal growth, and then how do you maintain all of those things. Laura also talks about some of the mistakes that she sees leaders making and how to avoid those. You don't want to miss this important conversation. Let's get at it.
This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. I'm so blessed and I'm so lucky to have these great leaders that want to have conversations, but not so much they want to have conversations with me. They want to impact and influence and inspire you and encourage you to be leaders that you can be. And I have today the founder and CEO at the Business Growers. Laura Johns has joined me today. Laura, it is so great to connect with you today. How you doing?
I'm great, Kenny. Thank you for having me. I love sharing my story. I love, learning from other people. I feel like every opportunity to get on a podcast and to chat is an opportunity to learn and grow. So I'm here for it. I'm ready.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. And we're going to so benefit from hearing about your experience, and your story is amazing. And I want you to start there if it's okay. Start with your backstory and what led you to go ahead and start your own company and to be able to influence and impact so many different other companies and leaders.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I guess I would say I'm really a story of a girl from small town Mississippi who now has grown a marketing agency that serves tech companies in 23 states across the United States, companies that are international as well. We have 17 team members we've grown in just a couple of years. And I really feel like it's a story of, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So that's the first thing I want to say. I did grow up in Mississippi and went to undergraduate here in Mississippi. And my father was a judge, and my mother stayed at home for the majority of my upbringing. And so I saw both of them working equally as hard in the home for my mom, in her case, and then out of the home for my dad. He was an attorney growing up until he became a judge when I was in sixth grade. But when I went to school, I ended up getting my master's at the University of Alabama in advertising and PR. I knew it was something I wanted to do. And through college had babysat for a family whose the father in the family just so happened to be a CEO at a tech company. So through connections with him, I started, I was the, I think 80, no, I'm sorry, back it up. I was the 32nd employee at his tech company that when they announced their acquisition, I was the 84th, I think, and there were 84 employees. No, it wasn't the 84th, but there were 84 employees. And then when they sold the company for 100 million a couple of years later, we had over 100 employees. So that was just really fun to be a part of a Mississippi tech success story. I know that Mississippi is not particularly known as a tech hub, but we do have a lot of success stories here. So through that, I went on to work for the company that acquired them. SmartSync was the name of that company that grew and sold for 100 million. Worked for Itron, the company that acquired them, for a couple of years, and really got a totally different type of experience where I was, instead of being one of a few marketing team members, I became one of 60 marketing team members at a multi-billion-dollar company that had processes in place, and they weren't winging it. They really knew what they were doing. So I got to learn kind of what that looked like, which was really cool. And then since then have gone to work for a couple of other organizations at the CMO level in technology, and decided, kind of interestingly, and I think that most people who are, have families understand, especially young families, when you get married and then you start to grow a family, perspective really changes about what's important. And for me, I have a husband in ministry, and so that is a big part of our marriage. It's not just a job. So it requires me, as in our partnership, to be a part of the ministry that of the church that he works for. And then in the same token, I knew that I wanted to be a present mother, and wanted to obviously be, available when my kids are sick and that type of thing. So that really started what I call this road to accidental entrepreneurship, where when my son was about 6 months old, at the time I was driving in the car total about 17 to 20 hours a week for my full-time job, and really hated disappointing anyone, and so was really trying hard to make it work. And there really did come a breaking point for me where I just knew that this was not serving my family or my physical health very well. And so thank God I had a wonderful boss at the time who said, put on paper what you need and we'll make it work. So I, at the time, transitioned to part-time with him, started a side hustle to make the other half of my income, ended up really enjoying getting to consult, do marketing consulting for a couple of local businesses in the area we were in. And from there, just, I guess, continued to scratch the entrepreneurial itch, I guess. But really at the time, an interesting thing to note, I'd say, is that at this time I had a very practically an infant, and I really was just figuring out how to keep our household income the same. So it wasn't like I was trying to grow a company at that time. Fast forward a couple of years, we have our second son, and our family is complete. And now, a couple of years ago when I started the Business Growers, it was he was born April of 2020, that fabulous year that we all remember. So he was 3 weeks after the world shut down. Yeah. And then in June of 2021, I realized, okay, I want to do this, but I want to do it with a team, and I want to make a bigger impact, and not just in our clients, but also in the lives of people that work for me. Yes. And so that's when June of 2021 was really when I embarked on the Business Growers as we know it today. So that was a long story, but I wanted to be thorough. So that's how I got to where I am today.
What an amazing story and an amazing journey. I loved every second of it. It wasn't long at all. And so now, as you're now really branching out and you are speaking to a lot of leaders all the time, a lot of what your company does is to take the burden kind of off leaders' plate. Laura, let's start here. What are some things that you see today that are really overwhelming leaders?
Yes, that's a great question. So particularly in the areas that we serve a lot of times that founder who is the salesperson, the engineer, and the operations manager. So that CEO that is running, and we're particularly specialized in B2B tech. So a lot of times it's a tech CEO, and they maybe have been doing business. So, up to this point with a business card and a handshake, but really want to take it to the next level, but need, a lot of times in that position, that business leader. We also serve, similarly, maybe a solo marketer in a tech company. So it could be the CEO, it could be that solo marketer, which I was for a lot of my career before I started the Business Growers. But, you know, in most cases, they really need a, you know, C-level marketing strategist who really understands the market, really understands what's going to move the needle from an, you know, ROI standpoint, because we all know we blow marketing dollars and have nothing to show for it. You know, that's very common in any company really, but specifically an early stage startup. But so we are here to solve the problem of that. Maybe that tech CEO goes and hires someone a couple of years out of college to be their marketing director or marketing person. But then you can't really expect that person to be the search engine optimization specialist, the digital ads expert, the web developer, the graphic designer. And I think a lot of people do expect that. They, oh, well, I've got a marketing person. So, and then you put all the pressure of 6 jobs on one person who's a couple of years out of college and doesn't know how to do all those things. So the Business Growers, we really help that founder or marketing leader who either can't afford or really doesn't need an in-house team fully, but needs a partner, not a vendor, but a partner who can serve at both that strategic higher level and present to the investors or the board, but also can do the day-to-day, uploading the blog post to the website, writing the blog, content. So we're really here to help come alongside those companies. And my hope is, the reason I called the Business Growers, is my hope is they grow out of us at some point, that we would help them until they start to fill roles. One of the things that we do that's a bit unique for an agency is that every month we provide our clients with a pie chart and a time tracking mechanism. So we show them how much time we're spending and on what to help them make better decisions about who to hire next if they're looking at that marketing hire.
Wow. It's so much that you guys do. And it's almost like you come to the rescue a little bit for a lot of the companies. Laura, are there a couple of telltale signs that a leader is overwhelmed? And if so, what are they?
Honestly, I think there's a very consistent pattern in being overwhelmed and realizing that you are doing a lot of things that you're not gifted to do. I think that overwhelm comes when we're a leader and we're trying to wear so many hats that we don't have kind of that, sometimes it takes us stopping and looking above ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's when it's really hard to do because we're always in the work. But if you just take a few minutes and try to audit, maybe it's just grab a sheet of paper and try to put in some buckets, like, here's what I'm really good at, and here's what I'm not good at, but I'm doing because I have to. And I think that doing a lot of the things, proportionally that you aren't great at, but you have to do, if that starts to overcompensate the things that you are good at, that's when I believe we get overwhelmed. I mean, there are plenty of reasons we get overwhelmed, but yes. I think as leaders, we get overwhelmed when we're doing things that are outside of our unique abilities. And we're doing so much of that we forget why we love the job or started that job in the first place.
Yes.
And so when you start to feel that, that friction, and it almost starts to, here's the telltale sign when it starts, if you're commuting in and driving into an office, and when you pull up, you just have that feeling of, defeat or overwhelm, or you don't even want to be there. I mean, that's when we need to start to, or, you don't want to turn on your Zoom for the day, or you don't want to get dressed. That's really when you start thinking, okay, how many of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis are things that I'm good at and are really in my zone of genius? And this is a practice my assistant, Ariana, who's amazing. She came on board in August of this year, and it was one of the first things she did. She had me track every minute of my day down to time with my kids, carpooling, whatever I was doing, taking that time and then putting it in buckets of, this is something that lights me up, lights me up and doesn't make me money, lights me up and does make me money. I hate, but makes me money. I hate, but doesn't make me money. So we worked through that the first couple of months of her being here. And that's really been a blessing, because you don't, work is obviously important. And for the most of us, it's what pays the bills. but it's also 40 plus hours of your week every week. And we need to be, life is short, and we really need to be mindful of those things that really give us energy and light us up.
Yeah, no doubt. And I love that exercise. And I love how you said sometimes you have to just stop and look above yourself and look down. It's so important. I love some of the other stuff that you have. I want to get into it. Know, Grow, and Scale.
Yeah.
Your company really does, I think, some amazing things to really help leaders and help companies just kind of take some burdens off so that they can really do their true talents. Talk about that, and what is why is that so important?
So Know, Grow, and Scale came to me, as most of us entrepreneurs, or anyone that's a leader, you probably has these, lay your head down and then your brain starts going. So it's one of those things that came to me, just before I was supposed to be sleeping, but it actually really, honestly, is a big part of the business name. So I'm not a gardener by any stretch of the imagination. I kill every plant that comes my way. My mother is so great at plants, and anytime I see her, I say this often and she laughs at me, but when she comes over to help me with the kids, most of the time I'll see her on my Ring camera, and she's outside trying to fix my plants, and I'm like, "Hey mom, the kids, like, you're here for the kids, not to make my front yard look better." She can't help herself. But she found a plant of mine that I had potted at home. This is right before I started the business. And she said, "Hey, Laura, this plant's not growing because it's root bound." And just in my pot, I didn't know anything about it. I thought it looked great from the outside, but she was basically giving me a heads up. This plant's not going to last much longer, but it's because of what you can't see, what's under the surface, what's under in the pot. And so she helped me split the roots up a little bit and get it to a healthier place. Now, it didn't look pretty at first once she got it fixed, but of course now it's thriving. And so the Business Growers was really, and if you see my logo, I have a leaf in my logo to remind me, particularly in tech, but any company, a lot of times we don't want to spend time on, and I call it Know, Grow, Scale, because there are really 3 very clear identifiers in the stage of your business. And everyone, the scale part is by all means the sexiest or the fanciest, or what people come to me usually wanting. Hey, we need Google ads, or hey, we need, these things, and in a self-diagnosing type of way. Well, so-and-so has got, usually we look at our competitors and we say, well, they've got this ad, so we need it. But they don't take the time to fix the roots or the foundation. So that's your brand messaging, your brand identity, really understanding what your messaging pillars are, how to make sure everybody in your company is rowing the same boat, saying the same thing. When you see somebody on the elevator, when your CEO sees someone on the elevator, when your janitor sees someone on the elevator, how do we say what we do? Are we saying that consistently on social media and our website? So Know, Grow, Scale, essentially are 3 ways that whenever a client or prospect comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm really interested in growing my business," we do an audit first to make sure it's a fit. And then we look at the know phase, which is that foundation, to see, okay, do they have all these elements in place to get to grow successfully, which is incorporating web development, SEO, social media management. And then if that's the case and we feel like they're in a good place there, then we move on to things like digital ads, email campaigns, some of those things that really are more of those scalable type of marketing activities. But we want to make sure the foundation and the roots are healthy first. And we miss that a lot because we want to get ahead of ourselves. So if I do nothing else for brands, I want to remind them that all 3 of those phases are important. And if not, the most important right up there is just that beginning foundation. I personally think it's the most important thing you can do for your business. And it's important not to glaze right through it.
Yeah, Laura, this was it's just so outstanding, and I'm picturing, as you're talking, not only a business, but I'm picturing a new leader, and it's such a blueprint, for them. And I loved how your mom brought that to your attention about the root. So let me ask that though. So how does the root get better? What are some things if you don't have that foundation? What are some things? Is it training? Is it learning? What are some things that you recommend?
Yes, the very first thing I recommend is reading the book Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller.
Okay.
That is, of course, we have a Story Brand certified guide on our team. There are story brand certified guides all over the country. You can find one there. It's an exercise that's well worth the investment. It forces you to sit down and think about your brand, think about how you say what you do, and it takes you through a framework that I believe is the best I've ever seen at getting everyone on the same page about how to say what you do. And really, the premise of the book is realizing that you, the brand, you are not the hero of the story. Your customer is.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really forces you to rethink the way you say what you do, not in a, we do this and we're so great at this and we do this, but in a way that makes your customer the hero of the story. So it really changes the way that you message and talk about the your business, even from a conversation at a bar or at a networking event or whatever. That is the very first step, I would say. Also, looking at brands that we know and recognize really well. There's a reason that some of them have things in common. There's a reason that my 3-year-old, when we pull up to Target, knows exactly where we are because of the brand identity. So
Yes.
I would say secondly would be just, looking at the way that your brand is presented, whether it's web, PowerPoint, business card, brochure, looking at all those things. And if they all say and look different, that's your next step, is getting some help in that area. Because the last thing you need, excuse me, if you're confused about your own brand identity, or if you are not consistent, then there's no way we should expect any customer of ours to understand who we are and what we do if we aren't on the same page internally about that.
Absolutely. Wow. Wow. It all makes it makes so much sense. Now, when I get to the scale part, I want to ask you what are some things that you recommend to maintain, right? Now
Yeah.
I've done all of that and now I'm at a good place. How do I maintain it?
Yeah. So there are, I think there are a lot of misconceptions about search engine optimization. This is something that if you're not equipped to do it, you certainly should outsource to an expert. It's one of those things that, you may never have a need for a full-time SEO hire, but there is Google is king. And I always say there are 3 ways that any customer is going to validate your brand before they make a purchase. They're going to look at your website. If it looks, like garbage, then that doesn't give them very much confidence in your brand. They're also going to look at your Google reviews. If you have a lot of negative reviews, then that's going to tell the person a lot about you. And they're also going to look at your social media. And I know, unfortunately, a lot of people devalue, lead generation from social media, which is a different conversation. But what you don't understand is that if I look at someone's social media and the last time they posted was 2018, that's not going to give me a whole lot of confidence about the relevancy of their brand.
Right.
And so, really being present, making sure that, I talk about SEO because that's a way to protect your digital presence.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that your website is relevant in all the keywords that you want it to be, making sure that you understand what's the search intent, what are people searching for that end up on my website, so you can kind of back into that with SEO. So there's a lot of more sophisticated ways that, and then also understanding a journey of someone on your website, which is again an SEO element. But when someone comes to your website, we want to know where they go once they get there and study that, really understand that, so that we can do a better job of keeping them there longer or leading them to the right place. We have a lot of people who come to us from a previous vendor and say, well, I've had a website for 6 years and I'm not getting leads. Well, it's because there's not that investment of the right tactics, from an SEO standpoint. So again, kind of just like keeping those 3 elements. Google is king. Your website, your social media, and your Google reviews are all going to be ways that your brand is validated. And I think, you really, again, looking above yourself and thinking about, okay, what am I good at and what am I not good at? And if you're not a technical SEO person, then don't try to be. Get help. That's we inherit a lot of websites that have been, attempted to be DIY'd, and that ends up taking more time to fix than it's worth. So just get help as soon as you're able to.
Yeah, trust me, I've been there. It's such a great piece of advice. This has been amazing. I have just a couple other questions for you, and then
Yeah.
I want to give plenty of time for you to talk about how people can connect with you. Um, you have 17 people, I think you mentioned, that
Mhm.
are with you today. What would be two or three skills that you really look for in leaders these days, Laura, that um from 2023 and beyond? We're just about done with 2023.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's a couple of skills that you really think are must-haves for emerging leaders today?
Yes. In my business, it's being able to be solutions focused.
Mhm.
So I personally don't have time for any of the team members on my team to come to me with a problem and leave it on me because I've got plenty for the day. So
Yeah.
it's actually one of our core values is we seek solutions. So anyone on my team knows if you come to me and you have a problem, you come with three solutions.
Mhm.
So we workshop it together and then we choose together the best solution that's going to have the best outcome for us and the client if it's a client issue or internally. And, if we fail, we fail forward. But being solutions focused is really important. And I think that's a mindset that not everyone has. So I do think that it's important. There are certainly skills tests that you can do that, you can make sure you have alignment, but you do want to ask questions when you interview candidates, just to make sure that you understand if they're solutions focused or not. And then for me personally, I don't know if this is, necessarily advice to someone else, but for me personally, I'm a very high trust person, which means that I do not micromanage.
Mhm.
And we do things like, it's not from a place of micromanagement, but we do track time so that we can get data to our clients, and that type of thing. But overall, we trust first. And so that comes with also accountability. So, knowing someone is a self-starter and has the ability to prioritize the things that they need to get done and make sure that they understand that they are trusted, but they're also accountable if things
Mhm.
don't get done. That's really important. So just I think kind of with that trust comes just the ability to prioritize, be a self-starter, and not need to be micromanaged. That's really important to me as a leader. Because I want to hire people that are better than me and that,
Yeah. Yeah.
that know how to do whatever I'm hiring them for better than me. So
Yeah.
trust and solutions focused are two big things for me.
That's such great advice, and I love the trust part. That doesn't happen overnight, but I think you're 100% right. There's some things you can see in an interview, even
Yeah.
where they'll take you there.
Yeah.
My last question, I've just been fascinated by, um, looking you up and now talking to you, how how ahead of the curve you are. So I'm curious what you do for self development. How do you develop yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. This is an interesting timing. I'm headed next week to a conference for marketing agency CEOs.
Hmm.
So I do my best to stay around other CEOs that are in, similar, either ahead of me or in the similar stage as me. So getting to know, and it's an investment. It's definitely going to cost me money. I'm going, traveling and
Yeah.
spending money. But to me, that is a worthy investment because I know that if I have a challenge in the business, that's the first group that I can ask, okay, who's been through this? Who knows this? So I don't, and particularly in marketing agencies, I think I could ask other leaders that, but people who understand the business I'm in, that's really important. Also, I'm really a firm believer, and this, I can't say my life, if you ask my husband, my life has not always been a reflection of this, but as I have grown as a business leader, I have seen the impact of my own mental and physical health and how it impacts my team, my day,
Oh,
the way that I lead. And so, whereas I used to, in my 20s, maybe I was working out for the physical results. Now I'm not quite so, 2 babies later, I'm not quite so interested in in that, but I am interested. It is so unbelievable how different I feel mentally, how, I come into my day. It's important for me to get some workout of some sort. I love my Peloton, so I get that done in the mornings, but it has been a game changer in how my outlook for the whole day and how I lead, how I show up for clients, having a lot more hard conversations than I ever have. So I would just say, find whatever it is. Quick tip, and I know we probably need to wrap up, but for me, it was really hard for me I was trying to get a workout in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And thankfully my therapist said to me, she said, aren't those kind of the hardest days for you to work out? And I was like, well, Wednesdays are really hard, and she said, how about you start looking at your workout in terms of minutes instead of days?
Yeah.
Game changer.
Yeah.
It is just the strangest thing. So instead of days, I just work out 150 minutes a week.
Yeah.
And so that might be a walk on a Saturday with my son.
Yeah.
That might be, but I just keep track of the minutes because on Saturdays and Sundays I have more minutes.
Yeah.
So I might get an hour in on a Saturday. So anyways, just think of things differently and learning that's been really important in my own growth. So I don't know if that will help anyone.
Oh, yeah. It just helped me. Yeah. But that's going to help a lot of people. That's awesome. I love it. Laura, you're an amazing leader, and please keep doing what you're doing. You're obviously impacting a lot of people, making a lot of folks' jobs a little bit easier so they can be their best them, as you said earlier. Yeah. How can people connect and work with you and find out more about you?
Yes, we are on pretty much all social platforms, even TikTok. We post some funny videos on TikTok. I've got a lot of creative young girls, so young women, that are on my team. So we do, I will say we'll post the occasional TikTok, but we're at The Biz Growers on Instagram, Twitter. Of course, you can look us up, The Business Growers on LinkedIn. I'd say we're probably equally active on all platforms because, we're social media team, so we have to be. But social media for me is really fun. I'm most present on LinkedIn personally. Laura Johns, you can look me up, CEO of The Business Growers. I'd love to connect with anyone. And I try my best to continue to post, very authentic leadership tips and advice, because I know a lot of folks are in the same boat as me, just trying to grow and learn. So I would love to connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll make sure all of that is out there and for folks to know and
of
connect
course,
with you.
I should have said our website, thebusinessgrowers.com is our
Businessgrowers.com. There
yeah.
you go. Okay. Awesome. Laura, I can't thank you enough for being so generous with your time, first of all, and just being so transparent and sharing so much with us. What great advice, continued success for you, and even 20-fold, because people need to hear your message. I think it's dead on, and it's so great for both business and personal. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure, folks. We're going to leave it there. This has been Kenny and Laura. This has been the Leading from the Middle podcast. We'll talk to you real soon.